Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. When you look into the book of Exodus towards the end, that is chapter 39, verse 43, after describing in detail all that went down, all that took place in the construction, in the erection of the tabernacle, how they did every single detail according to God's instruction, and how everything fell into place according to plan. It summarizes the whole thing, and it says, Moses saw all the work, and behold, they did it exactly as God had commanded them to do. So they did, and Moses blessed them. So what exactly was this blessing? Where do we find this blessing? Do we know what this blessing is? And the answer is yes. The answer is, the sages tell us that when you look into the book of Psalms, chapter 90, where it says a prayer by Moses, where Moses asks, Moses prays that God bestows his blessings on the work of our hands. This is directly connected to this verse. This is the prayer that Moses said when they completed the tabernacle. In fact, the last verse of that psalm, which is verse 17, where it says, may the favor or may the pleasantness of the Lord our God be upon us. Let the work of our hands prosper. Oh, prosper the work of our hands. So it's really a blessing and a prayer together. This is the very, very special blessing, special prayer that Moses said. This is a special prayer and a special blessing that one could and one should say whenever they need to have extra success in something. And this altogether serves us as a very, very important lesson. Look what happened here. God had a desire. God wanted to rest, to dwell his presence amongst his people in the desert. What did he do? God has no limitations. God has no restrictions. God, if he so desires, can be wherever he wants, however he wants, whenever he wants. Yet, God chose to make this happen in the following manner. That number one, the people do their part. They have to construct. They have to make everything according to plan, according to the detailed dimensions and descriptions as the Torah gives it. And only after that, number two, will God dwell his presence amongst them in that particular edifice. And then what do we find? That Moses prays. Moses gives him that blessing, that God should indeed bestow his blessings upon the work of their hands. This tells us something. We're all here to make this world a place for God. We're all here by God's desire for us to make this universe, even, or maybe perhaps especially the darker parts of the universe, a glowing place, a place where God, quote unquote, can dwell. But God doesn't need us, but yet he desired us. He chose to make it this way, that we need to be the ones to provide it for him, even though essentially he provides everything for us. Who are we to provide for him? But this is how God set up the rules. This was his desire, that it should come from us, it should come through us. So by us making our place in the world and our surroundings a better place, a more refined place. And the same applies, by the way, when earning a living, when doing the things in life which may not overtly seem to be directly connected to the spirit, to the purpose of why we're here. But it is, because without that, we cannot function. In all those things, God has no restrictions. He can do whatever he wants. He can give it to us without our input, but yet he desires for us to have an input. He desires for us to have our part, our hand in it. And therefore, we need to do our part. But once we do our part, once we are doing our we're taking an active role. We're doing our obligation. We need to hope for, and therefore we need to pray for, we need to ask for God's blessings, that the blessings come into it. This is a partnership. We do our part because so God desired, and as I made the point, not that he can't do it any other way, but this is how he wants it. And then we pray for God's blessings to, quote, dwell in the work of our hands, to, quote, make favor on our efforts. This is a very important thing. As we go through life, in everything and anything that we do, we need to be mindful of this. We need to do our part, and then we have the justification. Then we have the right to pray, to ask for those blessings. But for one to sit back and not to even make an effort, not to go, quote, put in the work of their hands, then we don't have a right. We don't have, so to speak, the justification to come to God and say, please bless us. You can only bless us when it's, quote, the work of our hands.